The 1920s was an age of dramatic social and political change. For the first time, more Americans lived in cities than on farms. America was a world power, and the nation's total wealth more than doubled between the years of 1920 and 1929, sweeping Americans into a consumer society. People from coast to coast bought the same goods, listened to the same music, did the same dances, and created a new urban mass culture. It was the beginning of a modern and prosperous age. President Harding was the first of the decade. He was a Republican candidate that was elected into office in 1921, closely following the end of the First World War. He was pro-big business and reduced taxes, particularly for corporations and wealthy individuals. High protective tariffs were enacted and immigration was limited. Throughout his term, he was most known for rejecting the League of Nations and instead signing a separate peace treaty with Germany and Austria. He was also known for signing the first federal child welfare program, addressing the 1921 Blair Mountain Miner War, the Great Railroad Strike of 1922, and cutting unemployment rate. Although not all of his legacy was good, Harding was plagued by scandal throughout his tenure, most notably the Teapot Dome scandal involving government acceptance of bribes from oil companies. Although Harding was not involved, the weight of the situation was said to have led to his death. For 2 years into his term, in 1923, he passed away from a heart attack.
There are rumors of your administration accepting bribes. Is there anything you'd like to say about that?
And of course, there's always people talking. Rumors are rumors, of course. There's nothing I can do about that.
On August 2nd, 1923, one day after Harding's death, President Calvin Coolidge took office. He was a Republican politician who provided a model of stability and respectability for the country after the scandalous Harding administration. After the end of the term, he ran for presidency again in 1924 and won. As president, his policies were guided by his strong belief in private business, limited government, isolation in foreign policy, tax cuts, and limited help to farmers. Coolidge came into office at a time of much prosperity in the country and was determined to preserve the old moral and economic precepts amid the material prosperity. He refused to use federal economic power to check the growing boom and fix the poor conditions of agriculture. Coolidge served as a sort of father figure. The quiet, respectable, and frugal president provided a comforting symbol of old-fashioned responsibility and virtue in a new and changing social era.
The truth is, Harding is gone. And so are the scandals in our White House. This is a good time for our country, and we must move forward. We will not interfere in foreign affairs, especially in Europe. Our work there is done. There is no right to strike against the public safety by anybody, anywhere, anytime.
Herbert Hoover, America's 31st president, took office in 1929, the year the U.S. economy plummeted into the Great Depression. Although his predecessor's policies undoubtedly contributed to the crisis, which lasted over a decade, Hoover bore much of the blame in the minds of the American people. He attempted to stimulate the economy, and some of the programs he introduced became key components of later relief efforts. He believed in a limited role of government and worried that excessive intervention from the government would result in a threat to capitalism. Therefore, he felt assistance should be handled on a local level. But as the Depression deepened, Hoover failed to recognize the severity of the situation, or even leverage the power of the federal government to squarely address it. A successful mining engineer before entering politics, the Iowa-born president was widely viewed as callous and insensitive toward the suffering of millions of desperate Americans. As a result, Hoover was soundly defeated in the 1932 presidential election by Democrat Franklin D. Roosevelt.
I am Warden Harding, and I approve this message.
I am President Calvin Coolidge, and I approve this message.